There's a new chapter of Blue Lock out, and with the second half starting next chapter, we finally have the conclusion of the Itoshi brothers storyline. Let's break it down. Hey everyone, Bruce, Double Touch Anime here. Hope you're doing well. I am. Talking the latest chapter of Blue Lock, chapter 125, title pieces. New setup. If you didn't see my last video, Laundry Room Bruce, Monkey D. Gucci. It is what it is. Hope you like the new setup. Let me know in the comments if you do. Let me know if you kind of like this angle more, seeing me kind of from a higher angle. Anyway, we're talking about Blue Lock this week, and we finally have the conclusion of the Itoshi brothers kind of storyline, their beginning of their rivalry with Sei coming back from Real Madrid, and we saw last chapter with his baggy eyes and his kind of a weight loss, Ren's concern. And, he challenged him to a one-on-one, and he said, if you don't win, our dream is over. I was kind of confused last week because I thought the translation was that you're never going to play football again if I win. I was kind of confused on that. I don't know if I just misread a translation or kind of misinterpreted what was written, but it was actually just Sei saying, that whole striker with you thing is over if you don't beat me. So that's what he was saying. And in this chapter, we do have the start of the one-on-one, and no suspense. It was over in a flash. Sei coming back and just showing off what he'd learned after being in Real Madrid with how fast and how technical he was. We see Ren get overwhelmed almost immediately, and Sei beats him. And it's interesting to note in the one-on-one that we see how much of a step up Sei has, and it's a weird juxtaposition against kind of his physical appearance of like how ragged he looks. So it tells me that yes, he was working hard, but it shows how big the world is, the football world is, because you can be working that hard to get up to that level, but for all we know, Sei could have gotten crushed, in Real Madrid, which a lot of people figure I'm going to put the name of the person who pointed this out in my last video down here, but he pointed out that somebody on Instagram stated that he probably met the scion of Real Madrid, the person that Itoshi and team, the 5-person team with him and Ren faced. Sei probably met him and just got bodied, and that's why he transitioned to a midfielder. A lot of people were joking on Twitter about how he probably saw Lionel Messi do something and said, I'm good, I'm being a striker. Fun fact, I am a football fan, I'm a Liverpool fan, but I'd actually never seen Lionel Messi play. I know it's kind of weird, but just a side note, I did see him play. I saw some highlights because of the Twitter jokes, and wow, that's I know that's like underwhelming, like wow, that's all you got to say, but like I've never seen anything like that. So thank you for Blue Lock Twitter for putting a highlight up so I could see it. That guy's incredible. Anyway, moving on. He probably met the scion of Real Madrid. I wish I could remember his name. I'll put it down here again. He probably met him and just got bodied. And it shows just how big the football world is and how much I think Sei is why he's so angry. Because he feels like maybe Ren isn't taking this as seriously as he would like him to. But it's hard to gauge that. It's hard to gauge how... I say it's hard to gauge how Sei feels, but Sei spells it out in this chapter, don't ever think of me. He scolds Ren after he beats him, he stomps him. And Ren's like, I became the best of Japan. I worked hard to get offers like you did. I'm putting everything I have into this to play with you. And Sei is like, well, if I don't want to ever play with you, don't ever think about playing with me again. If you do, then quit football if that's your only reason. If your only reason for playing with me or playing football is to play with me, quit. And never play football again. And then it's so that he spelled that, the Sei himself spelled it out how he feels, but with his dialogue previously about, if you still think of me as your older brother, you'll never surpass me. Does he want Ren to surpass him? Is he goad? There's some theories that he's goading Ren, kind of like an Itoshi situation, weirdly enough. He's trying to goad him into surpassing him. And so that's kind of on my mind as we see the kind of the conclusion of the Sei and Ren battle. We see, Ren go home, and he's having a crisis of conscience. His eyes seem dead. Which, side note again, sorry for all the side notes, Sei's eyes were excellent art this chapter. His eyes were dead when Sei mentioned, Sei's eyes were dead when Ren mentioned that he still wanted to play with Sei. That's all he ever wanted, and you just see his eyes just blank, kind of looking down, just completely dead. So we really see how emotionally beat up both brothers are, and Sei probably because he tasted the world and got overwhelmed by the wave of the world, and Ren because his brother effectively told him to, for lack of a better term, sorry for the cursing, to fuck off, basically. He effectively told him to go away and never approach him again. Don't think of me as your brother. You're nothing to me. And he has a crisis of conscience of whether or not that was ever his brother, if Sei ever actually cared for him as a family member, as a brother, or more just he was interested in Ren because he could be a football tool for him. He battles and grips with this until eventually he decides that he'll become such a striker that he'll crush his brother, quote, into pieces. So we see the title of the chapter come into play, crush him into pieces. And with the ending of this chapter, you see kind of, Ren's deep in thought, and he's like, hey, second half starting, let's go. But what I want to talk about is that this chapter, a really good string of chapters, guys, aside from like how awesome the art is, the writing is really showing us just how much ego isn't just a term. It's not just something that's like a catch-all or a just this manga's thing is ego. It's not the zone, it's the ego. Kind of, a Kuroko no Basket reference there. It really is, what does it mean to run with your ego as an athlete, as a striker specifically? Because we see multiple different examples of following your ego in the story. I think of Bachira, I think of Nagi, I think of Baro. I think of those people who all are following their ego, but that means different things. But Shiro wants to listen, doesn't want to follow the monster he perceived. He wants to follow his heart. His ego is listening to his heart and playing his selfish football. Nagi doesn't ever want to feel the frustration of losing again. He never wants to feel that kind of pain. So the only way to quench that is winning. And if he has to score all the goals to do that, he will. Baro, right, does not ever want to be a side actor. He does not want to be off center stage. And his ego is to make sure that he always has the center of attention on him, regardless of how he has to do that. Right, so those are different versions of ego. But notice they're all self-centered. Not just ego as in selfish. I mean self-centered as in they are centered on their characters, on they themselves, what they figured out for themselves. And why I bring that up is because Ren is talking about how he wants to play football only to crush his brother into pieces. His whole ego is just attached to Sei. And I feel like Sei is trying himself to get him out of that. Regardless of not, he wants to go to him just to because he's his brother, because he wants to see him as the greatest striker, or for whatever reason, good or bad, he wants Rin to acknowledge his ego. And we see Ego Jinpachi, the person, not ego itself, acknowledge that as well, because he's constantly mentioned how Isugi is the key to unlocking Ren's potential and is the key to bringing out what Ren can fully be as a striker. We haven't seen Ren show an ego yet. We have not seen him show a self-centered desire for football. We've only seen him chase vengeance and revenge and chase another person and using football to defeat them, not chasing football because he loves football for its sake, right? It's two completely different kind of dichotomies, and Ren is a good example in this manga of kind of the opposite of ego. He might be selfish, he might be arrogant, right? All those things, but his football doesn't come from a place of him wanting to be the best striker in the world just to say that he is, or just to be that, or for whatever reason like those three players I mentioned. For none of those self-centered reasons, he wants to be the best just because that would mean Sei is broken. Am I making sense there? Let me know in the comments if you agree with me, because I'm trying to explain it that his ego is intrinsically, right now, it's linked to Sei, while others' egos are just fully self-centered. I hope I explained that correctly. Continuing on that train of thought to finish out the review, I know like I kind of gave a quick synopsis, but this chapter really is just talking about kind of Itoshi Ren's worth. And he very much mentions that. He's like, am I worthless now that my brother doesn't want to play with me? I only want to play football to be with Nichan, my brother, Itoshi Sei, and he does not want to play with me. Am I worthless now? And at the end of the chapter, it's translated that it says, in order to destroy his dream, meaning Itoshi Sei's dream, I will keep playing football. So I really think Itoshi Ren's character development, his character arc, journey, there's a lot of different terms for it, his endpoint in terms of where he stands as a character ends with him realizing his worth outside of his brother's football. I think that is the conclusion to this storyline and Itoshi Ren's character development. That's all I have for this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed the review. I hope you like the new setup. Let me know in the comments if you do. Also, let me know, what did you think about this chapter? What did you think about Itoshi Ren's kind of realization, his development, his origin? Let me know about that. Second half starts next week. So we're finally going to see the demon come out on the field. We're going to see how under 20 comes back, how they strike back. Other people predicted they're going to score a lot of goals. I've predicted myself they're going to score 2 to 3. And then we're going to see some sort of Blue Lock comeback. I think that's what's going to happen. But let me know what you think. As always, guys, if you like the video, hit the like button. Drop a subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. It helps the channel grow. If you like Blue Lock content, sports manga content. Appreciate it, guys. Until next time. Later.